Okay, yeah, that Arslan will do. That will be taken care of. Yes, Arslan.
Okay. Yeah, so Dr. Pradhan, we have made you co-host, so you can now share the screen.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And let me see. Yes, everything is fine.
Yes, we can see your screen.
You can see my screen? Yes.
Yes.
Good. Yeah, the kind of experiences I've had, I was a bit worried that it will become too long a presentation. I've tried to restrict it, but let's see what happens.
Okay, so you have about 25 minutes, Dr. Pradhan.
My friend, 25 minutes, 33 years in that area. It's anyways, I'll try to keep time. I mean, the only worry is that I've got 3 or 4 videos which I think the viewers might enjoy watching. So that's the only thing that will take time. Otherwise, it's once I have talked for a while, it will be mainly pictorial, just to show the story through pictures.
Right. So maybe we can go about 5 minutes overboard, but keep in mind that we'll be then running short for questions. There might be questions from the audience. No, we have this 1 hour slot.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me when to start.
Yeah, I will do that. Arslan, just give us a nudge when to start, okay?
Okay.
Or Tayyiba, if you could give us a go ahead when to start, okay?
I'm ready when you are, okay?
Sure, Dr. Gulab, I guess we can start now. People will keep joining the meeting.
Okay. So here we go. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim.
No, Dr. Pradhan, you cannot go before me.
In fact, Arslan said, let's start. So I said, let's go, man. Remember, I'm a teacher. I'm a teacher and I'm raring to go, man.
I know. Okay. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I welcome you all to this Sage Talk session at the Syed Ahsan Ali and Syed Maratib Ali School of Education at the Lahore University of Management Sciences. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Gulab Khan, your host for the session today. It gives me immense pleasure hosting this session because the guest speaker for today has been someone with great influence at some stages in my academic and professional career. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and privilege to introduce Dr. Sadruddin Pradhan to you. Dr. Pradhan is currently the special advisor to the provost of Agar University. He has been associated with the AKU IED since its inception in July 1993 and has held senior faculty as well as management positions at AKU IED. His major contributions include setting up the academic programs and management systems, developing partnerships with various governments, international donors and agencies and universities, and representing the Agar University at national and international forums. Dr. Pradhan has been the Chief Executive Officer at the Agar Education Service Pakistan on 3 different occasions between 1989 and 1993, in 2000, and then more lately in 2011, 2014. As the CEO of AKSP, Dr. Pradhan led the establishment, expansion, and improvement of many AKSP schools in the remotest parts of Gilgit-Baltistan and Chitral. Dr. Pradhan holds a doctorate in chemistry from Uppsala University in Sweden. He also completed his bachelor's degree, honors in physics, and master's degree in chemistry from Uppsala University. Subsequently, he completed an MBA from University of Alberta, Canada. So, Dr. Pradhan, thank you very much for accepting my request to speak to us today. Before Dr. Pradhan takes the mic from me, the structure of the session goes something like this. First, Dr. Pradhan will talk about academia's role in development in Pakistan in about 20-25 minutes. Question and answer sessions will follow afterwards. So please hold your questions until the end. Or you can type your questions in the chat box, which Dr. Pradhan will come to when he has finished his presentation. Or Dr. Pradhan, if you would like to take the questions as you go along, it is your choice. So with that, Dr. Pradhan, mic is yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gulab. It's such a pleasure to be talking to your colleagues. And this particular topic is very dear to my heart. I've spent almost 33 years in Gilgit-Baltistan and Chitral, off and on. And it's been wonderful pleasure. But let me start formally. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let me thank LUMS and in particular Dr. Gulab Khan for giving me this opportunity to share my experiences about how education has evolved from my perspective in Gilgit-Baltistan and Chitral particularly. I will look at it from education development point of view. But I want to share a few quick slides so that we get a little introduction. I think this is a wonderful statement of all the civil rights for which the world has struggled and fought. The right to learn is undoubtedly the most fundamental. I think this is something sometimes we all seem to forget. So I will talk a little bit about how development takes place, where the terminologies come from, and I go back to the end of World War II. That was the time that kind of coincides with the end of colonialism also in a big way. And then world got divided into two distinct parts: developed world, the ex-colonial powers in the West and some of the Eastern European countries, and developing world, that's all of us who were colonized. So new realities started emerging. And I will just broadly look at development as development means economic development, social development, which includes health, education, housing, water, and cultural development. But I will focus entirely on education. Wherever there's a need, I might bring in some other social sectors. So this is the way it all looks. And you see, how does development occur? See, in Pakistan, we became independent in 1947. And how does development take place? You know, we have a huge population. We were we were a new country. We had to start from scratch. And of course, we all depended on the government, but government had its own issues. They were still setting up. We depended on private sector, civil society, partnerships. But development is a very slow process. And we have such a large rural setting where education was very, very limited around the time of our independence. So we depended quite a lot on private and civil society sector. But there were many issues. You see, we didn't have enough capacity. Our financial resources were not very strong. We had different kinds of political priorities. We were trying to settle in people who had migrated to Pakistan. We were trying to set up a new country. And then, of course, corruption became a huge issue with us. Ownership of whatever we did was a problem. And often at times when we got foreign funding, it came with strings attached. I call it, whose agenda was it? And that's one of the reasons why many of our reforms in any area failed. So broadly speaking, social development is a very broad area: education, health, housing, microfinance projects, community development. And I will just focus on education, particularly school and university. This is the area that I'll focus on. We have Gilgit-Baltistan and Chitral. On the northeast, we have got China, Wakhan corridor in the north, and then Tajikistan. We have Afghanistan on the west, the rest of Pakistan down south, and on the right-hand side, we have got Kashmir and then India. Development is a long-term thing. It takes a long time to develop, and it basically needs human resource and finances, as I mentioned earlier. And We rely on partnerships and ownerships. Uh, I wanted to show you a little slide, which I really enjoy sharing with people, because people say education is a slow process. Look at a child. A child spends 3 years in mother's care. Nowadays there is ECD, but still 3 years at home, 2 years at the ECD schooling, 5 years in primary school, 5 years in secondary, 2 years in higher secondary, 4 years graduation, 2 more years for masters. If they want to do PhD, there is another 4 years. After that, they start working, they gain experience. So by the time a child has really become a leader, over 30 years pass. So you see, already there you see a very, very slow process. And I was fortunate that over a period of my 33 years, I saw many generational changes, which I will try and share with you. So let me zero in on my experience. I have worked with 2 major education organizations within Agar Khan Development Network. One is Agar Khan University, the other one is Agar Khan Education Service, as Dr. Gulab Khan mentioned. But I've also had lots of interaction with Agar Khan Foundation, Agar Khan Rural Support Program. These are some of the agencies of Agar Khan Development Network, and all of them, majority of them operate in Gilgit-Baltistan and Chitral. And they all collaborate, and this is what makes it such an exciting thing. And one thing we must remember, that AKDN is large, but it is very small compared to the country. And that's what makes Agar Khan Development, Agar Khan Development Network such an exciting organization to work with, because you try to be in control of a lot of things and you collaborate. What are the principles of AKDN? Well, basically, it follows all Islamic values. And that's the basic fundamental thing about it. So it's ethics of inclusion, ethics of education and research, ethics of compassion and sharing, ethics of self-reliance, ethics of respect for life, health, ethics of sound mind, ethics of sustainable environment, physical, social, cultural, and ethics of governance. So it takes care of all the kinds of areas. And last point is very important, because one thing that I personally feel is very important is that we have tried our best to make sure that there is no corruption. And to the best of my knowledge, that is one thing that has been avoided, and that's been one of our greatest successes. So when did AKDN start? Well, in Pakistan, although the name AKDN didn't exist, our first schools came in 1905 in Gwadar in Balochistan. Schools were established in Kharadar, Karachi. In the 1940s, there were schools established in Gilgit-Baltistan, 1946 particularly, and from then on, these are the DJ schools. I'll talk a little bit more about it later. In Karachi, we had Agar Khan School Garden, Agar Khan Sultan Muhammad Shah Aga Khan School, and then Agar Khan schools in Chitral came a little later in 1980s, because earlier the Mehta did not agree to establishing of girls' schools. And AKDN initially focused on girls' education. But AKDN also had a lot of experience. We recognized that there were problems of quality of education. So we tested different kinds of improvement models. So we started in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania in 1981. So it's a long time ago. Then we went to Nairobi, Kampala, Karachi. Then we went to Gilgit-Baltistan, Chitral, where we had a number of projects. We were involved in improvement of physical infrastructure, field-based teacher development programs, other education programs. In the South, we were given back the schools that were nationalized during Zulfikar Bhutto's time. So in the mid-1980s, we spent a lot of time rehabilitating those schools and converted them into amongst the best schools in Pakistan. And we tested a lot of school improvement models. So we were learning a lot of lessons out of that. in early 90s, as soon as we found our feet, in early 90s, we started higher secondary schools, first in Karachi, then in Gilgit, and then in Karimabad, Hunza. Then we came to Gakuch and Sherkila in Gilgit, Baltistan, then we went to Chitral. We opened many innovative projects in Gilgit, Baltistan and Chitral. So all this was kind of very strategically planned. So what happened? Well, we started getting better qualified teachers through various programs. We got better qualified teachers through AKU IED, and Dr. Gulab is one of the examples there. We got a lot of very, very well educated intermediate level graduates from our Khan higher secondary schools, and now there are about 20 across Pakistan. And many of them have ended up in AKU, LUMS, IBA, GIK. So in other words, quality was a very, very important factor for us. And we have got more and more and more graduates entering different organizations, including AKDN. So in a way, we are very proud. But where did it all start? And a lot of my presentations will be pictorial. So I think it will give you an idea. Where do we operate? Well, we operate in the mountains. It's the junction between the three major mountain ranges: Himalayas, Karakorams, Pamir, etc. This is what the situation was, about 30, 40 years ago. And in some parts, it is still there. Very ramshackle kind of infrastructures, people having a very, very tough life. And it's a beautiful area. I mean, it's an area I love to go to. These are some of the pictures from the place. Now, this is an important picture because this shows the situation of education in the 70s and 80s. Kids sitting outside, very poor quality infrastructure, and something that you would really feel very sad about. But that was, it had to start somewhere, and this is where it started. Then we went into langar khanas, and we went into very dark rooms, but you can see already interesting things. There's a lot of children's work hanging on the walls and on the ceiling, and kids interested, but still kind of a bit overwhelmed. Now, let me show you a couple of movies.
Dr. Pradhan, we cannot, if there is sound, we cannot hear the sound.
Now, how do I manage that?
So if you could, when you share the screen, then you will have to click a button at the bottom that says share the sound of the system.
Just a second, let me exit, and we will, okay, now you can tell me, what do I do?
Okay, go to share screen.
Yes.
At the bottom.
You will have to reshare the screen, I guess.
Yeah. So when you click share
let
screen,
let me stop share. Okay.
Yeah. And then when you click share screen, there should be at the bottom a button that says if you can use share the system sound as well. I think that should help.
Let us try. Let us try. It's always worth a try. It worked very well here. I don't see that button.
No, it comes with the screen where you click share screen, and then you can see at the bottom there are two checks to be made.
Okay, just a second. Let me get out of this presentation. All right. Now I'm totally out of it. Let me see. All right, I'm now sharing screen. Tell me what happens now. where is the, or does it say share sound?
Yeah, if you can see that, yes, if share sound and optimize for video clip. I hope that should be helpful. Beyond that, I'm also technically
Okay.
little handicapped.
I've now clicked everything that was possible to click. Let us hope and
Okay.
pray. Let us hope and pray we move
Okay.
forward.
Okay, let's go ahead. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, when you press share screen, there is like white box open. At the bottom left corner of that box, there is share sound.
Yes. Let us. I did that. Can you hear the sound?
No, you
Yeah,
have to then share
now
the
share
screen.
the screen. Now press
Good.
share.
Now this is. Let's try. What do I do now?
So if you clicked share sound and optimize for video clip, then you have to click the screen that you want to share, your
Okay.
PowerPoint presentation screen,
Okay. Okay. Let us try.
and then click share.
Let's try one more time. Let's try one
Yeah.
more time. I'm sharing the screen again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And now, if you want to play the movies, the videos directly, you can do it from here.
Yeah. Let me try from here. You know.
Yeah, that should work, I think. Yeah.
This
Embedded videos.
This might be better. Let me see if you can hear the sound here.
Yeah, we can.
Ah, good. Okay, we'll do it physically. Hyperlinks often don't work.
In the remote isolation of Shimshar, medical help means a treacherous 3-day-long journey, sometimes the difference between life and death.
Volunteer scout
The volunteers are already waiting for them at Cook. So far, Naima seems to be faring well. With a little more luck, she should be able to reach the hospital by nightfall. Before the road construction started, this journey would have taken up to 3 days, along a much more dangerous route. But due to the tireless efforts of the community, the jeep road connecting Chimshal with the Karakoram highway is nearing completion, and the curse of isolation will soon be lifted. Earth, wind, fire, and water. The elements of nature have always posed the toughest challenges to the mountain people. But today, motivated communities are going through a much-needed transformation. Many remote villages like Chimshar are connected to the highway by jeepable roads and bridges. The village organizations
Let me show you this second movie. Can you see it? Hello?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes, Dr. Vardhan.
Mim, wow, re, ye, kaf.
Muriq Begum is learning to write. As one stroke flows into the other to form her name, Muriq Begum joins the ranks of girls taking their first step into the exciting world of knowledge and recognition, of of herself as a human being and of her place in the world around her.
तालीम ने असिल अनपढ़ असिल जग बस बात सकती है असिल अब लाई सकती गुरबत बातन का है सकती है अमा बातन जी ने बिलन ज़बान वाइन है मर ने वाइन तो आना दिशर वाइन मुतक वाइन मर ने वाइन बे असल आगुज़ारा बिली तकलीफ गुज़ारा बिली
For centuries, the harsh, forbidding conditions of the remote northern areas of Pakistan kept progress at bay. People survived on little else but subsistence farming and a few head of cattle. That life could be different was a possibility as remote as the village they lived in. Most of their lives, they shut their doors against the elements and waited. Then, like the warm sunshine that melts the snow and brings the mountains to life, education became available.
يا مغريكا مرغيكا وكلاي.
In the beginning, money was scarce, and school was usually a level field under the sky, where the village boys sat on the ground and shared a few books.
इस ज़माने में जो सहूलियात हैं उस वक्त नहीं थे। हम नीचे फर्श पर बैठते थे, कभी कभार किसी दरख्त के नीचे बैठ के हम पढ़ते थे, कभी पत्थर के ऊपर बैठ के हम पढ़ते थे।
उस ज़माने में गुर्बत थी, हालात बहुत कमज़ोर थे। हमारे घरेलू हालात नहीं बल्कि पूरे दरकुत की, पूरे बल्कि ये नॉर्थन एरिया की। तो इस तरह हम नंगे पाँव स्कूल जाते थे और किताबों की यही हालत थी। 2 बच्चों में 3 बच्चों में एक किताब होती थी। हम बारी बारी उस किताब को इस्तेमाल करते थे।
But still, the girls were left behind. Age-old customs, prejudice, ignorance, all found barriers that kept women back, even as men moved forward.
बच्चों को हम पढ़ाते थे, बच्चे नहीं आते थे। वो ये कहते थे कि बच्ची तालीम करके क्या करेगी, वो घर का काम करे, रोटी पकाए, माल मवेशी का काम करे, जिम्मेदारी करे, आपने सब्जियों वगैरह का काम करे।
Education for girls came with a great deal of personal sacrifice and social struggle.
There was a boys' school near to our house. So in the morning, I used to go and see how do they conduct the assembly. I wanted to go and then study, but I couldn't go.
Okay.
Dr. Pradhan, so we are almost
Yes.
halfway through the session. Just
Yes.
to give you a nudge. Yeah.
Yeah. No. I'm monitoring the time. Fortunately, the movie only 3 minutes or 4 minutes.
The unique geography of Gilgit-Baltistan and Chitral has made this land a global destination. Forged from the collisions of two continents, the land is the meeting point of three of the world's tallest ranges: the Karakoram, the Himalayas, and Hindu Kush. It boasts some of the world's tallest peaks, the largest glaciers, and the most serene lakes contrasted with covered valleys that transform in the summer into rich pastures. Endless floral beds,
Dr. Pradhan, we lost the sound, I think.
issues, lack of all-year transportation network, and limited access to power has hampered of its economic potential. May not know is investments that have recent
The
time
quality of sound
these
is
challenges.
deteriorating.
Body tunnel, accessibility, and will support all-weather transport. The network of micro, mini, larger hydropower plants that are being installed across the region provide electricity to communities and small areas. The educational institutions that are churning out skilled workforce ready to contribute towards this region's and the country's economic prosperity. And over $40 billion infrastructure investments from the Pak-China Corridor project into this region next decade are already having their impact and transforming Gilgit-Baltistan and Chitral into a business hub and gateway that connects mighty China with Pakistan and the huge markets of Middle East, Africa, and Europe. What's to follow is a chain reaction of events that will uplift the economic landscape of Pakistan forever. In tourism, the region, with its unique geography and beauty, can be developed to become the largest tourist destination for domestic as well as international tourists from China and around the world. In agriculture, fruits like apricot, grown organically in 28 varieties, supplying 70% of dry fruit to Pakistan, can expand growth with huge potential to cater to the international market. In hydropower, new favorable policies of the government and facilitations by AKRSP have made it easier to tap into the more than 40,000 megawatts of hydro potential by setting up plants for captive or utility sale. In gems and jewelry, recently introduced lapidary, training, and certification programs will help make use of the amazing stones extracted out of unparalleled geology, which is believed to have the 5th largest gemstone deposit in the world. This is your calling, a call to invest in the region and take advantage of these events to set up or expand your business, as the opportunities are limitless, and there will never be a better time to invest.
All right, I think I will skip one video that you can watch on YouTube, or if time permits at the end, I can show it to you. Let me go back to my presentation. So I hope you got a feel for what the situation was like and how things started changing. So I'll now fast forward. We invested enormously in teacher education. You see a faculty member here teaching. You've got a teacher educator teaching girls. You see here a very interesting situation. It's a good weather situation, so people are studying outside. But the building that you see behind is a so-called self-help schools construction program, where the villagers, Aga Khan Foundation, Aga Khan Education Service, and Aga Khan Planning and Building Services all put their minds together and constructed. And these buildings are seismic resistant. So in case of an earthquake as high as 7.5 Richter scale, these buildings will still stay intact and can be used as shelters. So, students started getting better and better infrastructure. And today, across Gilgit-Baltistan and Chitral, virtually every village has got such schools. And, it's a much more conducive environment than what was earlier available. But the harsh weather still remains. There's always snow. And now you can see a difference. You saw the initial photographs and look at the photographs now. Children all studying together, fully uniformed, very good, very well behaved in different kinds of a situation. Generally very happy children. And, this has been the great pleasure to see them. You've got outdoor classes, geography class, and this is my favorite picture. You've got running water, a very, very happy young lady. In the background, you've got a self-help school, and that's the story. So, in summary, what has happened is that we started in 1946, and that was the inception. The journey began. We emphasized girls' education. Then we started looking at quality education, improvement of infrastructure, improvement of human resources, teacher development programs, establishment of the Aga Khan University, establishment of the Aga Khan University Institute for Educational Development, so further capacity development, establishment of higher secondary schools, and the children, who were born at the end of 80s are now taking leadership roles, having accessed the solid education that is now provided by AKDN. AKDN continues its efforts. We get into partnerships with many organizations. There are big funding agencies. And even as we are talking, in Gilgit-Baltistan and Chitral, there is collaboration with Aga Khan Foundation, collaboration with other funding agencies to improve the quality of education, now all the way from ECD upwards. This is a remarkable building. If you ever get a chance to go to Gilgit-Baltistan, this is what used to be the Aga Khan Academy. It's now Aga Khan Higher Secondary School in Hunza, perhaps one of the best located schools that I have ever come across, and I worked in 4 continents, and this is an amazing structure. And I think the young ladies are so lucky to have that. This is inside the Aga Khan Higher Secondary School. This is one of the teachers, and I think her smile tells us all. This young lady was the principal of Sherkila School. She's currently a faculty member at KIU. She is the head of education. She completed her PhD from the United States. This is another self-help school construction building. This is the higher secondary school in Gakuch, which is a co-ed school, both boys and girls. And these are young children still enjoying the time in the field, and you see more and more happy children. So this is the Aga Khan University, which played a crucial role in development of education. And this is the institution where I spent many years. It was established 28 years ago, still going strong. And this is an institution that has developed lots and lots and lots of teachers and teacher educators. This is a professional development center in Gilgit-Baltistan. The international funders who we have worked with are European Economic Commission, SIDA, Canada, New Zealand, Save the Children, UNESCO, United Nations Development Program, USAID, World Bank, and many more are coming. These are some of the reflections of the funding agencies. They take pride in establishing and working with Aga Khan University Institute for Educational Development, because we spent a lot of time, and I think I really think we were quite successful in developing capacity. Another comment made by the EC ambassador to Pakistan: if you wish to see the success of ID, you can see it more significantly in the eyes of the teachers who have been trained by ID. The spark in their eyes speaks volumes about dedication, sincerity of their work. Again, more accolades. And I think, Gulab Khan, maybe I'll stop here in case there are questions, because I've got many more slides, but let's stop here.
Okay, Dr. Pradhan, thank you very much for this very engaging and interactive sort of walkthrough the history of AKD and especially AKSP and AKU, and especially in the socioeconomic development in Gilgit-Baltistan and Chitral, particularly the development of education in these very difficult, some very hard to reach mountainous areas. I think your presentation has very nicely captured in an interactive manner how education got to the mountains and valleys through the efforts of academia, which otherwise I think may have taken another 3-4 decades. And I think the imagery is not very old that you showed us, and you can already see the challenges that exist still on ground in many places. I still remember going to one of the very remote schools on foot, 2 hours walking, about 2 hours of jeep drive and then 2 hours walking, Shamsabad I'm talking about. So AKDN's role has really been very significant, and I think you have given us a very engaging talk in that regard. So dear audience, the floor is open for questions. Before that, let me share here that Faisal Bari of the Dean School of Education, he is welcoming you, Dr. Pradhan, to this talk in the chat box, if you can read that. So the floor is open for questions, dear audience. You can raise hand and I can give you the floor. If no question is coming from the audience, I do have. Okay,
yes.
Faisal, please go ahead.
Faisal Bari has a question.
Dr. Saab, thank you very much for the presentation. If I were to ask you to look back on these 3 decades of your engagement, what are the 3 or 4 or maybe more or less principles that tell you, I mean, why is an outside agency needed to catalyze, start, or even move forward such work? What does the community lack and what does that provide? And is there a point at which, a tipping point at which then the community becomes self-sustaining in driving towards the direction that they want to move in?
Right. Faisal, actually, we have reached that point right now. But let me get back to your initial question. You know, one thing I learned was that AKDN never showed that they were in a hurry. They wanted to make sure that whatever is done with good quality and there is sustainability. That was the basic principle. So when in 1946, the then Aga Khan, Sir Sultan Muhammad Shah, when he sent a message to the population in Gilgit-Baltistan, in fact, all Central Asia, that educate your children, particularly the girls, and if you have a choice between a girl child and a male child, educate the girl because then you are educating a whole family. That was the starting point. And initially, he just wanted the community to get used to what it meant to invest their time looking after their children, because you don't bring in huge amounts of money and then everybody gets confused. So it took 30 years so that people got experience and people worked very hard to make sure that their schools were stabilized. Then came the mid-70s and we said, okay, what do we do now? Our 2 urgent needs were providing children with a conducive environment to make sure that they went to a school which was which they could be proud of, and to develop capacity, because in those days we had teachers teaching with qualifications as low as grade 8 pass, and then grade 10 pass, then intermediate. So we hardly had any graduates. Now remember, 75 was not too long ago, but we invested enormously. So we made deals with several universities, Allama Iqbal Open University, and we invested in human resource development. So grade 8 became grade 10, grade 10 became grade 12, grade 12 became graduation, then B.Ed, etc. So, and that all takes time. So simultaneously, with whatever good capacity was available, we started two high quality institutions. One was in Karimabad Hunza, the picture I showed you. The other picture also I showed you was in Sherkila. Those two schools were to develop human capacity of the women, because one of the two great kids were teachers and health professionals. And they produced a lot of people who ended up becoming health professionals, initially lady health visitors, then the nurses, etc. And today, for example, at AKU, 80% plus students who come into the School of Nursing are from Agar higher secondary schools in Gilgit-Baltistan and Chitral. They have never seen anything like that. Fantastic qualifications. So, see, Faisal, so in the 70s and 80s, focus was on improving the infrastructure, teacher education. Then in the 90s, teacher education at a higher level and establishment of higher secondary schools, because the children were also growing and they needed places to go where the quality was good. So Agar higher secondary schools started springing up. Again, they had to be very good quality, otherwise AKDN would just not accept it. So that was the 1990s. And then IED came up and Agar University also went into education. Then came the 2000. Now 2000, we hit a big problem. Teachers who joined us in the 1970s and 80s, they were not quite aligned with what our needs were in around the turn of the century, and many of them had become old. So what we did was that after, of course, there was a lot of grief, a lot of frustration, but we came to an agreement and we retired 377 teachers, gave them a good retirement benefit, because otherwise they would have got pittance, because as a private institution, we could not afford pensions. So His Highness mobilized the funds, and we changed, we made a major change. We brought in young teachers, gave further professional development. So that was in the last decade. So today we have young teachers, well-qualified teachers, and from initially just 5 higher secondary school students, now we can boast of 21 schools that provide higher secondary education across Pakistan. So this is the way to go. Okay, then comes your big question. Initially, we needed support. Building infrastructure is very resource intensive, and organizations that wanted to support us were willing to invest in innovation. So our field-based teacher development program was a very innovative program, could be replicated in many parts of the world. Our infrastructure development, the self-help school construction program, was also very innovative and won many prizes. So we piggybacked on that and made sure that we developed a lot of capacity, infrastructure, etc. Now, by 2008, most of our needs were met, and the community recognized that, hey, we now have to become self-sufficient. So fees were charged. You see, in today, for example, a child at Agar Higher Secondary School in Gilgit will pay as much as 10,000 rupees per month, because the economic condition of the community has improved. Economic condition of the people in Gilgit-Baltistan has improved. And those who can't afford, there is funding available, there are donors available, so that we would not let any child miss education because they did not have it. So you see, Faisal, it is kind of an evolutionary process. Today, when we go in partnership with funders, it is because they want to see certain things, and it is within our our objectives. So we are investing a lot of time and money into early childhood development, because we genuinely believe that if you have a strong foundation, the child will turn out to be very, very good. So Aga Khan Foundation brings us the money. We don't import money straight into Pakistan. Now, unless a United Nations wants to intervene in some specific project of the government, it's fine. We can work with them. So gradually, I think we have started becoming self-sufficient.
Thank you, Dr. Pradhan. There are two more questions before we close. We have about 9 minutes, so I'll let Rehana Qazi have her question, please.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to start off by saying, Dr. Pradhan, that it's an absolute honor for you to be, speaking to us directly like this. We'll just keep my question very, very short. I think a lot of my classmates keep talking about how to improve the quality of education in Pakistan, and we're always kind of asking each other, what can we do? So I think that's my question to you as well. That with this whole program, we're students of School of Education, and we're studying how to become better educators and better leaders in the education sector. How can people like us contribute to the cause and the mission that you have?
Oh, I think this is a wonderful question, actually, and I really feel that there is a lot of room for collaboration because the needs are enormous. But we are also quite concerned that while Gilgit-Baltistan and Chitral have developed, and believe it or not, it's an amazing development. You go into any of those schools, and you don't see such schools in even more advanced countries. But I think they still need a lot of help because they deserve it. But my bigger worry is rest of Pakistan. I think rural Sindh is really struggling. How can we mobilize people? Because one of the things that has happened, Rana, in Gilgit-Baltistan is the community is so motivated and it is prepared to invest, something that we don't see in some of the parts of Pakistan. But I would suggest that maybe ID and LUMS work together and do some specialized kind of a program in Gilgit-Baltistan, Chitral. We've got a good government university, which is the KIU. The KIU Vice Chancellor is a very dynamic person, and I'm sure that he would be more than happy to collaborate with us. KIU has perhaps the highest number of PhDs compared to any other university in Pakistan, compared to the number of faculty, and they've got over 150 faculty. So yes, I think we can all work together there.
Okay, Dr. Pradhan, I can see that there are now some more hands up. I would request Salman Saab to keep the question brief and Dr. Pradhan to keep the response brief so that others could also get the floor.
Gulab, I cannot promise that because I love talking about those things.
Salman Saab, please go ahead. You're on mute. Unmute, please use.
Dr. Gulab, thank you so much for bringing in such lovely people who share their stories, makes us more motivated with every passing day. And Dr. Pradhan, thank you for sharing your wonderful success stories. Very quickly, two questions. This has been a subsidized education, has brought some excellent results. When do you think the whole population of GBC will be self-sustained in its education system? One. Second question is very quickly, I'm sure all of this must have happened through good trained teachers. How did you manage to do that? Because in the plains here in the country, in our country, in Pakistan, how do we do that? Because I manage over 100 schools, which are non-formal home-based schools, and teaching, getting good teachers is a huge, huge problem for self-sustained schools. Please comment on it. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. So the first question was. What was the first question, Salman sir?
My first question was, obviously, that you must have done all calculations that how do you plan to educate on this model, the whole of GBC, because eventually funding is going to dry up, or they're going to move out, or let's say even if it keeps on coming, it should be self-sustained.
So how can quality be scaled up? The way.
Let me quickly start with a short story, probably half a minute. I was visiting a village called and I went to a school there, And on this, at the school, there was a board which showed how many children were at school, and last line was 1 child out of school. And I asked, what is the literacy rate of that particular village? And if you draw a line at age 30, it was nearly 100%. So our focus in the 1970s and 80s was get everybody into primary school as much as was possible. Then came quality, then came high school, etc. So it was calculated, but we still find that there are remote pockets where education is still hard to come by, but we make sure that primary schools are available, and government is very cooperative. So yes, we think that Gilgit, Baltistan and Chitral are in a strong position that within the next 5-10 years, majority of the children will have access. Now, whether they access it or not, that is up to the parents, but access will be available. The second question was, we worked with the communities, and the communities were absolutely amazing. So we are also now focusing on non-formal education, and I think communities can be our great partners. Now, if you work with the communities will find educated people for you who can become teachers, and one can simultaneously train them so that in the future they become part of the capacity that we want. I have found that happening every time we have tried a non-formal education project. We are trying it right here in Karachi in the fishing villages, and it has worked. The community takes ownership, and they find people who you can train to become teachers.
Oh, I think,
Okay.
yeah, Doctor, thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Pradhan. There are 2 hands raised, Javed, Akbar and Maliha. I don't know if we can really take more questions. We have 2 minutes before we close the session. So Javed, if you could keep your questions short, and Dr. Pradhan, your response short. Javed, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, everyone. And I myself a product of Acadian. Like, I started my schooling from a DJ school, then I graduated from higher secondary school, Gilgit. When in 1999, when we enrolled in Akhan Higher Secondary School, we used to have a school anthem. Our will is strong, our aims are high, we will make you a place for the world to see. And today we proudly say that the entire world knows us. All the graduates of higher secondary school are around the world, in UK, USA, in all fields. My just one request, or is it take it as a request or a suggestion or a question, that we don't have a well-structured, strong alumni. If we can have that, so that we will give back to the Acadian. Thank you.
Excellent point, Javed. And we have tried so often, but with the current social media, it's become very difficult. But it's not impossible. And I agree with you that we need to have some structured things so that we can give back.
Sure, thank you.
But so Javed, I must have met you at the higher secondary when Mirbais Khan was your principal, right?
Yes, Doctor. I also worked in AKES for 2 years in HR. Then Khan Health. Also, I met you personally as well when you were there.
There you go. There you
Currently,
go.
I'm based in UAE. I am leading HR department for one of the top 10 hospital in UAE.
Excellent, excellent, excellent.
Okay, I think there was one more hand raised, but that is down now, I think. So we are almost at the end of this session. So Dr. Pradhan and everyone else, on behalf of Sayyid Ehsan Ali and Sayyid Maratib School of Education, I would like to extend our gratitude to you, Dr. Pradhan, and to you all for being here today. Thank you, Dr. Pradhan. Thank you, everyone. This brings us to the end of this session. Have a great evening, and we hope to see you again in our future.
Inshallah.
Thank you very much.
It was a pleasure talking to you. Although I get too enthused about this and I get carried away. It's a pity I could not show you one movie, but you can see it on the YouTube.
We'll have more sessions hopefully in the future.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, folks.
Good
Good Hafiz.
Thank you.